The billionaire's ghostly encounter, a hospital's secret, a past revealed. Hook. Mr. Thorne, I need you to sign these documents to start the new hospital wing project, the secretary said, as Matthew Thorne gazed at the view from his 20th floor office. Leave them on my desk. I'll review them in a moment, he replied distractedly, adjusting his tie before grabbing his briefcase. The clock read 9:30 a.m. He had an important meeting at St. Luke's Hospital. During the drive in his black Mercedes, Matthew mentally reviewed the project numbers. $15 million invested in the most ambitious renovation of London's most prestigious private medical center. This project could catapult his construction firm to another level. Upon arriving at the hospital, Sarah, his assistant, was waiting for him at the entrance. The investors are in the boardroom on the 3rd floor, she informed him as they walked. But Dr. Wilson asked that you first see the spaces where the new wing will be built. Can't we leave it for later? Matthew asked impatiently. She insisted it was important for you to visualize the complete project before the presentation. Matthew sighed, resigned. All right, let's go. They walked through several corridors until they reached the maternity wing. The smell of disinfectant churned his stomach, bringing back memories he preferred to keep buried. It was then that he saw her. Elena stood next to a bassinet, holding a baby. Her brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, her nurse's uniform, her gentle smile as she looked at the newborn. The image hit him like a punch to the gut. He froze. Elena looked up, and their eyes met. Time seemed to stop. "Matthew," she whispered, instinctively clutching the baby to her chest. "What? What are you doing here?" he managed to articulate, his voice barely a murmur. "I work here, in the neonatal intensive care unit." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah, noticing the tension, cleared her throat. "Mr. Thorne, the investors—" "Give me a moment," Matthew cut in, not taking his eyes off Elena and the baby. Is he yours?" The question hung in the air, heavy, uncomfortable. Elena shook her head. "No, Matthew, he's an abandoned baby. They found him this morning at the hospital entrance." Matthew felt the air return to his lungs, but the knot in his throat persisted. 2 years of distance evaporated in an instant. "Mr. Thorne," Sarah insisted, "we really need to—" "I'm coming," he replied curtly. He looked at Elena one last time, who had returned her attention to the baby. "We need to talk," he said, before turning away. "There's nothing to talk about, Matthew," she replied without looking at him. "We said everything we had to say 2 years ago." Matthew clenched his fists and followed Sarah towards the boardroom, leaving Elena and the baby behind, but carrying with him the weight of unanswered questions and dreams that could never be. What deep-seated emotions do you think this encounter stirred in Matthew? Share your thoughts in the comments. Confronting ghosts of the past, the meeting with the investors became a blur in Matthew's mind. His thoughts lingered in the maternity ward. "The presentation was excellent," Sarah commented as they left the boardroom. "Are you feeling all right?" "I need a moment," Matthew replied, loosening his tie. "Where's the restroom?" In the restroom, he splashed cold water on his face. The mirror reflected a disturbed man, very different from the confident businessman he usually was. He dried his face and went out, determined to find Elena. He found her in the nurse's break room, alone, filling out some forms. "Can we talk?" he asked from the doorway. Elena looked up. "I'm working, Matthew." "5 minutes, Elena, please." She put the pen down on the table. "What do you want to talk about? About how you disappeared after the divorce, or how you blocked my calls when I tried to contact you about pending paperwork?" "I know, I acted like a coward," Matthew admitted, sitting across from her. "But seeing you today, with that baby—" "Don't do this," Elena interrupted him. "Don't use the baby as an excuse. His name is Leo, by the way, and I'm just doing my job." Since when do you work here? For a year now. After I sold the apartment you left me, I decided to change hospitals. I needed a new beginning. Silence settled between them, heavy with memories. Do you remember the last time we were in a hospital together? Matthew asked. Don't do this, Elena repeated, her voice breaking slightly. It was when we lost the baby, he continued, after our third fertilization attempt. And after that, you became obsessed with work, Elena added, as if building buildings could fill the void left by our unborn child. Elena, No, Matthew. I don't want your pity or your belated explanations. 2 years have passed. I've rebuilt my life. I'm fine this way. The door opened, and a young nurse entered. Elena, Leo is crying. He doesn't want to take his bottle. Elena immediately stood up. I have to go. Can we meet later? Matthew insisted. There's a new project here at the hospital. We'll coincide. This is a workplace, Matthew. Let's keep it professional. Elena paused at the door. And please, don't mention the past again. It doesn't hurt as much if we don't stir it up. Matthew watched her walk away down the corridor, her white uniform disappearing among the hospital staff. He remained seated, thinking about how 2 people who once shared everything could now barely hold a civil conversation. His phone vibrated. It was Sarah. The modified blueprints are ready for review. Matthew put the phone away without responding. The blueprints could wait. He needed to think. He needed to understand why seeing Elena with that baby had awakened feelings he believed were buried under meters of concrete and years of obsessive work. The abandoned child and a lingering regret. The baby was found in a cardboard box wrapped in an old blanket, explained Dr. Michelle Wilson to Matthew in her office. Sad, isn't it? Luckily, Elena was on duty that morning. Matthew had sought out the administrator under the pretext of discussing project details, but the conversation, inevitably, drifted to the abandoned baby. And what's going to happen to him? He asked, feigning disinterest. For now, he's in temporary hospital custody. Elena is personally taking care of him, while social services processes the case. Elena always had a special gift with children, Matthew murmured. I know. I've seen her grow professionally this past year. She's one of our best nurses. Matthew shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Did she tell you about you two? Yes, she mentioned something. But don't worry. Here, personal stories take a back seat. What's important is the work. A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Elena. Dr. Wilson, I need your signature for... She stopped when she saw Matthew. Excuse me, I'll come back later. Come in, Elena, Michelle ordered. Mr. Thorne was just leaving. How is Leo? Better. He's taking his bottle normally now, and his vital signs are stable. Matthew stood up, but before leaving he asked, Why Leo? Elena looked at him directly for the first time that day. Because it means the one who brings light. And that's what he has brought to the NICU. Light. Technically, Michelle interjected, we shouldn't name them. Abandoned babies. They all deserve a name, Elena interrupted firmly. I'm not going to refer to him as Baby Doe number 47, or the abandoned one from door 3. Matthew remembered discussions about baby names years ago when they were planning their family. Elena had always been passionate about that topic. I need the project documents on my desk early tomorrow, Matthew said, abruptly changing the subject. Excuse me. He left the office feeling Elena's gaze on his back. In the hallway, he stopped in front of the NICU window. Leo slept peacefully in his bassinet, oblivious to the drama unfolding around him. A nurse approached the bassinet to check the monitors. Are you family? She asked when she saw Matthew. No, he replied, walking away, just passing by. As he walked towards the exit, his mind returned again and again to that cardboard box and old blanket. What kind of desperation led someone to abandon their own child? Perhaps, he thought, there were different kinds of abandonment, some more obvious than others. A past revealed, a new perspective. I've already reviewed the blueprints for the new wing, Matthew said, sitting in his office that night. But there's something I don't understand. What is it? Sarah asked, preparing to take notes. Why didn't anyone tell me Elena worked there? Sarah closed her notebook. I didn't think it was relevant to the project, sir. You didn't think it was relevant that my ex-wife works in the hospital where we're going to build? With all due respect, Mr. Thorne, you never talk about your personal life, and the information we had was about administrative staff, not nurses. Matthew rubbed his temples. The day's images kept replaying in his head. Do you want us to look for another hospital for the project? Sarah suggested. No, he replied flatly. This project is too important. His cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Michelle. We need to discuss some details about the NICU area. Can we meet tomorrow? Schedule a meeting with Dr. Wilson for tomorrow, he ordered Sarah. What time? Any time, except during the nurse's shift change. Sarah looked at him with understanding. The shift change is at 3. Then at 11, Matthew said, standing up. I'm going home. In the parking lot, his phone rang again. This time, it was his mother. How was the hospital meeting? She asked. Fine, he replied curtly. Did you see her? Matthew stopped before getting into the car. How do you know? Son, London is small, and I'm still in contact with some people at the hospital. Mom, I don't want to talk about this. You never want to talk about anything, Matthew, just like your father. You know, sometimes silence does more harm than words. I have to drive, Mom. Talk later. On the way home, he passed the building where he used to live with Elena. The lights in the 7th floor apartment were on. New tenants, new life. He remembered the last night they spent there 2 years ago. The packed boxes, the heavy silence, the unspoken words. We can't go on like this, Elena had said that night. Like what? Living like strangers, sleeping in separate rooms, avoiding each other. I'm busy with work, Elena. The construction firm, the projects, the meetings. There's always something more important than us. Matthew shook his head, returning to the present. The traffic light was green. Behind him, someone honked. He sped up, leaving the building and the memories behind. But the knot in his stomach persisted, just as it had 2 years ago. An unexpected truth unfolds. The model of the new project occupied the center of the boardroom. Matthew pointed to the different spaces as he explained. The new wing will have 5 floors. The first will be exclusively for newborns and pediatric intensive care. Why start with newborns? One of the investors asked. Because it's where it's most needed, Michelle replied before Matthew. Our current unit is overwhelmed. Elena entered at that moment with some documents. She stood by the door waiting. The design includes 25 new incubators, Matthew continued, avoiding looking at her, and a special area for abandoned babies. The investors exchanged glances. Abandoned babies? One questioned. Wouldn't it be better to focus on patients who can pay? Elena stepped forward. Excuse me, but Elena, Michelle warned. No, doctor, they need to understand something. Elena approached the table. Those babies didn't choose their situation, and as a hospital, we have a social responsibility. Madam, one of the investors began. Nurse Smith, she corrected him, and I've seen babies die because we didn't have enough space or equipment. Does that sound like a good business model to you? Elena, please, Matthew intervened. This is a private meeting. Sure, private. Like all your important meetings, right? Silence filled the room. Michelle cleared her throat. Perhaps we should take a break, she suggested. The investors left, leaving Matthew and Elena alone with Michelle. I'm sorry, Elena murmured. I got carried away. Your arguments are valid, Matthew said, surprising her. In fact, I had already considered that in the budget. What? The abandoned baby wing will be funded by a special fund. It won't depend on the investors. Elena looked at him, confused. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, he replied, gathering his documents. And because someone taught me that everyone deserves a chance. He left the room, leaving Elena speechless. Michelle smiled slightly. People change, Elena, the doctor said. Sometimes they just need time. Or an abandoned baby, Elena murmured, looking at the blueprints on the table. The hospital cafe was almost empty. Matthew stirred his coffee without drinking it, while Elena sat across from him, her hands wrapped around her cup. Thanks for agreeing to talk to me, he said. I'm not doing it for you, Elena replied. I'm doing it for the project. I need to know if you're really going to follow through on what you said about the abandoned baby area. I have everything in writing. I can show you the documents. Why, Matthew? Why now? Do I need a reason to do something good? You always have a reason. There's always a hidden motive. Matthew put the spoon down on the table. Seeing Leo made me think. Don't bring Leo into this. It's the truth, Elena. Seeing how you care for him. How I would have cared for our son. The silence grew dense between them. When I suggested adopting, Elena continued, you said it wasn't the same, that you wanted your own blood, your own surname. I was an idiot. Were you? I'm still an idiot, but at least now I know. Elena took a sip of coffee. You know what's the worst part? That we didn't even fight. You just drifted away. Dinners alone turned into dinners with clients. Nights together turned into nights at the office. Work was an excuse, Matthew admitted. I was scared. Of what? Of not being enough. Of failing you, like I failed you with. Don't say it. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter anymore, Elena said, standing up. I have to go back. Leo needs his medicine. Elena, if you really want to do something good, keep your word with the project. Those babies need a dignified place. I will, I promise you. Don't promise me anything. Promise it to them. Elena left, leaving Matthew alone with his cold coffee and his thoughts. Through the cafe window, he could see the structure where the new wing would be built. Meters of concrete and glass that, he hoped, could begin to repair some of what he had broken. A mother's confession. A son's revelation. Your mother is here, Sarah announced over the intercom. Matthew barely had time to look up when Mrs. Eleanor Thorne already entered his office, elegant as always in her tailored suit. To what do I owe the visit? Matthew asked. Does a mother need reasons to see her son? You always have reasons, Mom. Eleanor sat across from the desk. Michelle told me about the hospital project. Since when do you talk to Michelle? Since always. She was the one who attended me when what? Eleanor sighed deeply. When we adopted you, son. Matthew felt as if the air had left the room. What? I was 25 years old. I couldn't have children. Your father and I tried everything, just like you and Elena. No, it can't be. Michelle was a young resident then. She helped us with the process. Matthew stood up abruptly. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to know. Because I saw how you looked at Elena with contempt when she suggested adopting. That was different. Why? Because I'm not your real mother. No, you are my mother. Exactly. Eleanor smiled. Just like you could have been the real father to any child you adopted. Matthew sank into his chair. Dad knows? Your father was the one who insisted on the adoption. He said that love builds families, not blood. Why did you never tell me? At first, because you were very young. Later, I suppose the moment never seemed right. Matthew remembered all the times he had boasted about the Thorne lineage, about the family blood, about the importance of the surname. Elena, he murmured. Elena understood this better than you, Eleanor said. She sees every day how love has nothing to do with biology. I have to go, Matthew said, standing up. I need to think. Son, Eleanor called him before he left. Don't make the mistake of confusing blood with love. Your father and I loved you from the first moment we saw you, just as you could have loved. Please, Mom, I need to be alone. He left the office and drove aimlessly through the city. He ended up, without really being surprised, in the hospital parking lot. From there, he could see the NICU window, where he knew Elena would be caring for Leo. His phone rang. It was a message from Michelle. Your mother told me, when you want to talk, you know where to find me. Matthew found Michelle in her office, reviewing files despite the late hour. How many others knew? He asked from the doorway. Only me and Dr. Green, who has passed away, Michelle replied without looking up. Sit down. Elena never. No, I never told her. It wasn't my place. Matthew sank into the chair. You were a precious baby, Michelle smiled. Eleanor couldn't stop crying when she put you in her arms, and the woman who gave birth to me. She was very young. She wanted you to have a better life, like Leo's mother. Every story is different, Matthew. But yes, love sometimes means letting go. Down the hallway, they heard Elena's voice singing softly. She was doing her night rounds. Did you know she's applying to adopt Leo? Michelle asked. Matthew looked at her in surprise. What? It's still in process. The social worker will come next week for the final assessment. But can she? I mean, she's single and… Times have changed, Matthew, and Elena has everything in her favor. Stable job, her own home, excellent references. Her own home? Yes, the apartment you left her. She completely renovated it. The guest room is now a nursery. Matthew remembered that room. They had painted it together years ago, dreaming of the baby that never came. She was always ready, he murmured. And you weren't, Michelle completed. But that doesn't make you a bad person, just someone who needed time to understand certain things. Like what? Like families come in all shapes and sizes. Like love doesn't need shared DNA. Like sometimes the best parents are the ones who choose to be parents, not the ones who are by accident. Elena passed in front of the office, gently rocking Leo. She didn't see them. She looks happy, Matthew said. She is, Michelle replied. She found her way. The question is, Juma, have you found yours? Matthew stood up. Thanks, Michelle. Why? For keeping the secret, for taking care of Elena, for everything. Go home, Matthew. It's been a long day. In the parking lot, Matthew looked one last time towards the illuminated window where Elena was caring for Leo. He wondered if his father had felt that way, 35 years ago, looking through another hospital window, waiting to take home a baby who didn't share his blood, but who would fill his life with love. What profound impact will this revelation have on Matthew's choices going forward? Will he finally embrace a new understanding of family and love? Hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Old walls, new foundations. The Thornes always build for the future, his father's voice said in the corporate video. Matthew watched it from his computer in his darkened office. Sir, Sarah interrupted from the doorway. The contractors are waiting for your signature to begin demolition at the hospital. Has the area been evacuated? Yes. The NICU has been temporarily relocated to the 3rd floor. Matthew closed his laptop. Elena, did Nurse Smith agree to the relocation? In fact, she organized everything. She says as long as the babies are safe, the rest is just logistics. Typical of her, Matthew murmured. Pardon? Nothing, Bring the documents. As he signed, he remembered the conversation with his mother. The Thorns, the family legacy, all built on a truth hidden for decades. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Elena. "We need to talk about the modified blueprints. I'm going to the hospital," he announced, standing up. "But the board meeting. Reschedule everything. At the hospital." He found Elena in the temporary unit, checking the facilities. "The electrical connections aren't enough," she said, without greeting him. "I know. It's temporary." "A baby in an incubator doesn't understand temporary, Matthew. That's why I brought this." She held out a roll of blueprints. "Emergency modifications. We can reinforce the electrical system today." Elena reviewed the blueprints. "When?" "Last night. I couldn't sleep." "Why?" Matthew hesitated for a moment. "Did you know I'm adopted?" Elena looked up, surprised. "What? I found out yesterday. My mother, Michelle, was there. When?" "Matthew. All this time, Elena. All those times I talked about family lineage, about the importance of Thorn blood." "Stop," Elena said softly. "Don't do this." "Do what? Use this as a way to, I don't know, redeem yourself or something. It's not that." "Then what is it?" Matthew looked through the window, where several babies slept in their bassinets. "It's understanding, finally, that I was wrong, that you were right, that a family—" "Matthew, please. 2 years have passed. I've already made my decision with Leo." "I know, and I'm happy for you, for both of you." Elena looked at him intently, searching for any sign of a lie in his words. "I just want to do the right thing," he added. "For these babies, for the hospital, for everything I didn't do before." "Good," Elena replied after a moment. "Then let's start with those electrical connections. Demolitions start tomorrow," Matthew announced at the staff meeting. "The process will take 3 weeks." The doctors and nurses listened attentively as he pointed to the blueprints projected on the wall. "What if they find structural problems?" Elena asked from the back of the room. "We have contingency plans," Matthew replied. "We won't take risks with patients." Michelle observed the exchange with interest. The tension between them had changed. It had transformed into something more professional, more mature. After the meeting, Matthew stayed to collect his documents. "The social worker is coming today," Michelle commented, approaching. "I know." "How do you know?" "Elena's been more nervous than usual, and she's been staying late for 3 days organizing documents." "You know her well." "I used to," Matthew corrected. "Now it's different." "Different better or different worse?" "Just different." A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Sarah. "Mr. Thorne, they found something during the preliminary inspection." "What?" "You'd better come see." In the demolition area, a group of workers surrounded the uncovered wall. "It's part of the original structure," explained the foreman, "from when this was a convent more than 100 years ago." "Does it affect the construction plans?" Matthew asked. "We'd have to modify the entire design to preserve it." "How much would it delay the project?" 2 months, minimum." Matthew observed the ancient wall. The exposed bricks told a story of care and service that dated back generations. "Do it," he ordered. "Modify the blueprints. This wall stays." "But sir, the additional cost—" "Some things are worth preserving," Matthew interrupted. "This hospital has history. Let's respect it." From the hallway, Elena observed the scene. For a moment, her eyes met Matthew's. She nodded slightly before turning and returning to the NICU, where the social worker was waiting for her for the final interview. A crisis and a shared vigil. "Leo has a fever," Elena announced, leaning over the incubator. 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Night had fallen over the hospital, and the noise of construction machinery had finally ceased. "The antibiotics should be taking effect," Dr. Brown replied, checking the chart. Something's not right, Elena insisted. His breathing is very rapid. At that moment, the monitors began to beep. He's convulsing, Elena cried. Everything became a whirlwind of activity. Doctors running, shouted orders, the sharp sound of alarms. Matthew, who was checking the progress of the construction on the floor below, heard the code blue over the loudspeakers. NICU, code blue. Without thinking, he ran up the stairs. When he arrived, he saw Elena through the glass, performing compressions on Leo's tiny chest. "Come on, little one," he heard her murmur. "Don't give up." The minutes dragged on like hours. Finally, the cardiac monitor returned to a normal rhythm. Elena came out of the room exhausted and was surprised to see Matthew. "What are you doing here?" "I heard the code," he replied. "He's stable," Elena sighed. "For now." She sank into a chair, trembling slightly. Matthew took off his jacket and put it over her shoulders. "The social worker," Elena began. "She'll approve it," Matthew interrupted. "She'd be an idiot if she didn't. How can you be so sure?" "Because I saw you in there. Because anyone who sees you with him—" "Matthew, no. Let me finish. You're the best mother Leo could have. And I say that as someone who knows about extraordinary adoptive mothers." Elena looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. "The flowers," she said suddenly. "What? The flowers at the NICU entrance? They're the same ones I used to have at home. Sunflowers." "Oh, that." Matthew scratched the back of his neck, uncomfortable. "The landscaper asked what flowers to put and—" "Thank you," Elena interrupted, "for remembering." "There are many things I remember, Elena." The silence that followed was different from previous ones, less tense, more thoughtful. "I need to go back to Leo," Elena finally said, taking off his jacket. "Of course, and Elena, yes, he's going to be okay. Both of them will be." Elena nodded and returned to the unit. Matthew stayed a moment longer, looking through the glass as she gently arranged the blankets around the baby. The sunflowers at the entrance were reflected in the window, silent witnesses to a new type of understanding between two people who once shared everything. A new family, a lasting legacy. "The adoption was approved," Michelle announced, entering Matthew's temporary office at the hospital. "Elena already knows. They'll tell her officially this afternoon. But yes, Leo will legally be her son." Matthew put down the blueprints he was reviewing. "Good. They deserve it. You know, Elena asked that the waiting area in the new plans be modified. Why? She wants a space for parents to be close to their children without interfering with medical work. She says waiting is the hardest part." "I already modified it," Matthew replied. "I added an area with reclining chairs and a small kitchenette." "When?" "A week ago. It was obvious it was needed." Michelle smiled. "Have you changed, Matthew?" "No, I just see things differently." A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Elena. "Am I interrupting?" she asked. "Not at all," Michelle replied, standing up. "In fact, I was just leaving." When they were alone, Elena approached the desk. "The social worker gave me the final papers," she said, showing him a folder. "Congratulations." "Thank you." Elena hesitated for a moment. "There's something I want to ask you." "What is it? Why the wall? The ancient wall?" "Yes, I know preserving it is delaying the whole project." Matthew stood up and walked to the window. From there, they could see the partially demolished structure with the centenary wall still standing. "When I was a child," he began, "my father brought me here. He showed me this hospital and told me, 'Son, we don't just build buildings. We build places where life happens.' I didn't understand what he meant until now. And what did he mean? That some things are worth more than money or time, that there are stories that deserve to be preserved." Elena also approached the window. "Leo is better now," she said, The fever hasn't returned. I know. I read the reports every day. Why? Why does it matter to me? Because even if things are different, what matters to you matters to me. Elena looked at him for a long time. The wall, she finally said, reminds me of us. How? Something ancient that survives despite changes. Different, but still standing. Elena. No, it's okay. It's better this way. Different, but not destroyed. She walked away from the window and headed towards the door. The adoption ceremony is on Friday, she said before leaving. If you want to come, I'll be there, Matthew replied. Elena nodded and left, leaving behind the echo of an invitation that, months ago, would have been unthinkable. The ceremony and a silent promise. The social services office smelled of old paper and stale coffee. Elena waited while the social worker, Ms. Johnson, reviewed the documents one last time. Everything seems to be in order, she finally said. We just need one last signature here. Elena took the pen with a trembling hand. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Are you sure about this? Ms. Johnson asked. Being a single mother isn't easy. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. There's one more thing, the social worker added. We received an additional letter of recommendation. From whom? From Mr. Matthew Thorne. He says you are the most capable person he knows to be a mother. Elena froze, the pen suspended over the paper. No, she didn't know. She didn't have to know. But it weighed heavily on the final decision. It's not common for a businessman of his level to take the time to write something like that. Elena signed the document, blinking back tears. Leo Smith, Ms. Johnson read. Beautiful name. It was my grandfather's name, Elena replied. A man who believed that family is much more than blood. Back at the hospital, she found Matthew supervising the construction. Why did you do it? She asked directly. Do what? The letter of recommendation. Matthew put down the blueprints he was reviewing. Because it was the right thing to do. Because you deserve to be happy. I didn't need your help. I know. I didn't do it to help you. I did it because it's the truth. They looked at each other in silence, the noise of the construction as a backdrop. Friday, Elena finally said. The ceremony is at 11. I know. I already asked for the day off. Elena nodded and turned away, but stopped before leaving. Matthew? Yes? Thank you. The word floated between them, heavy with meaning, before Elena disappeared down the hallway towards the NICU, where Leo awaited her. Matthew remained staring at the empty space where she had been, thinking of all the letters he never wrote, of all the truths he never spoke, and how sometimes love means letting go and supporting from afar. The night before the adoption ceremony, Matthew couldn't sleep. From his window, he saw the lights of London twinkle like fallen stars. His phone rang. It was Sarah. Sir, there's an emergency at the hospital. What happened? A water leak damaged part of the electrical system in the temporary NICU area. Matthew was already putting on his jacket. I'm on my way. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Elena evacuating the babies. The emergency generator is failing, she explained as she moved an incubator. Leo and 2 other babies need constant power. Where are you taking them? To the south wing, but it's full. There aren't enough connections. Matthew observed the situation. My temporary office, he suddenly said, has its own generator for the construction computers. Are you sure? Completely. Let's go. They worked together for the next few hours, moving equipment, connecting cables, making sure every baby was stable. At 3 a.m, everything was finally under control. Elena sank into a chair next to Leo's incubator. In a few hours, he'll officially be my son, she murmured. He's already your son, Matthew replied. The paper just makes it legal. Do you remember when we used to stay up like this? Elena asked. Planning the future, talking about babies. Elena. No, it's okay. It's different now. Everything is different. Leo stirred in his incubator, making soft noises. He looks like you, Matthew said. What? When he sleeps, he makes the same gestures you do. Elena smiled. Babies learn from those who care for them, like I learned from my parents, Matthew added. From my adoptive parents. They fell silent, watching Leo sleep. The lights of the monitors blinked softly, like fireflies in the darkness. You should go rest, Matthew finally said. Tomorrow is an important day. Will you stay with him? Yes, go easy. Elena stood up and walked towards the door. Before leaving, she turned. Sometimes, she said softly, things don't turn out as we plan, but that doesn't mean they turn out wrong. Matthew nodded, and Elena disappeared into the hospital night, leaving him alone with Leo, and with the thought that sometimes love has strange ways of manifesting itself, like nocturnal butterflies seeking the light. The inauguration and a new chapter. The day dawned clear and bright. The courthouse ceremony room was full of people, hospital staff, Elena's family, some close friends. Nervous? Michelle asked, sitting next to Matthew in the last row. Why would I be nervous? It's not my ceremony. No, but it's an end and a beginning. Elena entered with Leo in her arms. The baby wore a small white suit that made him look like a tiny angel. The social worker accompanied her with the final documents. Please rise, the judge announced. As he listened to the formal proceedings, Matthew remembered another ceremony, years ago, when his parents finally told him about his adoption. He was 12 years old, and his biggest concern had been whether he could still call them mom and dad. Of course, his father had said, love needs no explanations. The judge's voice brought him back to the present. Elena Smith, do you accept all the legal and moral responsibilities that come with being Leo's mother? Yes, I accept, Elena replied firmly. By the power vested in me by law, I declare this adoption official. Leo is now, legally and permanently, your son. Applause filled the room. Elena hugged Leo, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. Matthew silently got up and walked towards the exit. In the hallway, he met his mother. Are you leaving so soon? Eleanor asked. My part here is done. Your part? What do you think your part was, son? Matthew looked towards the room where Elena was receiving hugs and congratulations. To learn, he finally replied. To learn that sometimes love means letting go, as you and Dad taught me. Eleanor took his hand. And as Leo's birth mother taught Elena, the circle continues, son. Matthew nodded and walked towards the elevators, carrying with him the image of Elena and Leo, a new family formed not by blood, but by choices, by love. The inauguration of the new pavilion will be in 2 weeks, Matthew announced at the final meeting. I want everything perfect. The contractors nodded, reviewing the latest modifications. The ancient wall had been perfectly integrated into the modern design, creating a contrast that told the hospital's story. Elena Nurse Smith asked for a tour beforehand, Sarah informed him. Why? She wants to make sure everything works for the babies. You know how she is with details. Matthew smiled slightly. Schedule it for tomorrow. In the temporary unit, Elena prepared Leo to go home. The baby had grown strong and healthy in recent weeks. Ready for tomorrow's tour? Michelle asked, entering the unit. I need to make sure everything is okay, Elena replied. The connections, the ventilation, the spaces, the design is excellent. Matthew made sure of that. Elena picked up Leo, who gurgled happily. I know. It's different now. Different how? More professional, as if we had finally found our place with each other. Michelle watched as Elena prepared Leo's bag with the efficiency of an experienced mother. You know, sometimes the best relationships are the ones that evolve, the doctor commented. The ones that transform into something new, like the hospital. Exactly, like that ancient wall that is now part of something modern. Elena looked out the window towards the almost finished construction. Tomorrow will be the first time we see the entire pavilion, she said. Nervous? No, just curious to see how everything has changed, how we have all changed. Leo yawned in her arms, oblivious to the adults' conversations. Go home, Michelle suggested. Tomorrow will be a long day. Elena nodded and left with Leo, leaving behind the echo of steps that would soon walk new corridors, built on ancient foundations, but looking towards the future. The promise of a new era. The new pavilion gleamed under the morning sun. Guests began to arrive early. Hospital authorities, investors, medical staff. It's beautiful, Elena murmured, holding Leo as she looked at the facade that combined the ancient wall with modern glass. Does everything work as you expected? Matthew asked, approaching. Better. The new incubators are perfect, and the parents' area, it was your idea, but you improved it. Leo extended his tiny hands towards Matthew, who hesitated for a moment before smiling at him. You can hold him, Elena said. He doesn't bite yet. Matthew carefully took the baby. Leo immediately grabbed his tie. He's strong, he commented. Like his mother, Michelle said, joining them. It's time for the speech, Matthew. He returned the baby to Elena and walked towards the podium. The crowd quieted. This building, he began, is not just concrete and glass. It's a promise to every baby born here, to every family waiting in these hallways, to every life that begins within these walls. He paused, looking at the ancient wall. My father taught me that we build more than buildings. We build spaces where life happens, where families are formed, where love grows, sometimes in ways we don't expect. His eyes met Elena's for a moment. This pavilion is a bridge between the past and the future, like the wall we preserved. It reminds us that some things must remain, while others evolve and transform into something new, something better. Leo let out a giggle, breaking the solemnity of the moment. Some people laughed, and that, Matthew concluded with a smile, is the true sound of hope, the sound for which we build, the sound of the future. Applause resonated as he cut the ribbon. Elena approached with Leo. It was a good speech, she said. I learned from the best, he replied, looking at his parents in the crowd. You know, Leo will need godparents for his baptism. Matthew looked at her in surprise. Think about it, Elena added, before walking away to greet guests who wanted to meet Leo. Matthew remained looking at them, thinking about how sometimes life builds bridges where there were once walls. This is such a profoundly moving story about finding family in unexpected places and healing old wounds. If you were touched by Matthew and Elena's journey, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a dose of hope. And for more incredible tales of transformation, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell.